Um, all right. Hello, everybody. We have the lovely Tanika here with us today to share some of her stories and experiences surrounding pregnancy and infant loss. And I'm just super excited. She brings such a wealth of personal experience mixed with professional and just I can just from talking with you a little bit before we went live, I can just see your passion for this topic, and I'm so happy that we get to host you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here.
Well, thank you. I think if we just want to start with you telling us a little bit more about yourself and where you live and all the kind of basic general things.
Okay, sure. So again, I'm Tanika Dillard. I'm a native of South Carolina, born and raised here. I have a bachelor's degree from Lander University here in South Carolina, a healthcare management degree. And I have spent the last almost 20 years working in oncology, doing clinical research, stem cell transplant. That's the population that we work with, and I do the statistics and research and follow up for those patients. That's my professional life by day, but my passion is helping grievers, mostly because that has been the journey that my husband and I have walked. We have quite a story as we have attempted to build our family. And we do have 6 children, two of which actually are here in our home, and 6 that are in heaven. So I'm a mother, I'm a wife. Those are my greatest accomplishments, and what I love the most. Um, and then we'll talk about all the other things that I'm able and privileged to do and support.
Thank you. I just muted myself for a minute because I've got little elephants running around upstairs, but we're just going to go with it.
So it's totally fine.
But so you had said, I know that your journey towards motherhood, it didn't go necessarily the way that you had thought that it would. Would you share some of that part of your story with us?
Sure. So, absolutely. My journey toward motherhood is nothing like I thought that it would. I wanted to be a mother since the time I was about 6 or 7 years old. And I know that is way early to be thinking about being a mom, but I had a Cabbage Patch doll. When we went to Atlanta to the Cabbage Patch nursery and I saw my baby be hatched. And from that moment, I knew like, I want my own real baby. But outside of, that fairy tale life, I was surrounded by great women, great mothers in my family. My own mom and my grandmothers were like wonderful examples of mothers. And I saw the richness. I felt the richness of being in their presence. Holidays were amazing because they were all surrounded by their children. And my maternal grandmother had 12 kids. So she had her 12th kid at the age of 40. And yeah, she was like the bomb. And then my paternal grandmother had 5 children. And so family get togethers, holidays were always a major event because it was filled with, this presence and this love. And it was all surrounded by the mother, by my grandmothers. And I wanted that. Even at a young age, I knew that there was something magical about what came along with being a mother. And I wanted that. And so I knew that I didn't want a small family. I wanted a big family because I figured if my grandmother could have 12 and the other grandma could have 5, I could land somewhere in the middle and we just rounded off at 9. I just picked 9. So I wanted 9 kids. I didn't come to that number until I was like in high school, but early on I wanted, a big family. So thankfully, I met my husband, and it was no secret to him when we were just friends and when we progressed into a courtship that, listen, I want you to understand that I want 9 kids. Are you up for the task? And he was like, sure, whatever. Nobody wants that many kids, but hey, yes. So he never thought I was crazy. He understood my desire for family. And once he, was indoctrinated into our culture, he was like, I can see why. So we were married a year. after our first anniversary, we found out we were pregnant, and it was beautiful. I mean, I had no morning sickness, nothing but an oily face, an oily nose. But he wasn't sick. I wasn't sick. It was the greatest experience ever until 16 weeks. I was at work feeling great, was going to go to the bathroom just one more time before I left for the day. And that one more time ended up being, like four consecutive times to the restroom within about 20 minutes. And I felt a gush of water, and my water actually broke in my office on my way to the bathroom. So I was like, I didn't know what it was at the time. I thought, maybe the baby is just on my bladder, and, this is embarrassing. Um, but I later found out that it was not the baby on my bladder, it was my water breaking. Um, and so that is what the first derailment in our journey to motherhood. So our daughter, Destiny, was born at 16 weeks, and so we knew that there was, no chances for her survival being that young. So we delivered her, and the doctors told us to wait 3 months and try again. There was no concrete evidence to point to why, my water broke. Was it just, something that just happened? Was it an infection? Or, was there something genetically wrong? They had no idea. They said just 3 months and try again. So we followed the doctor's orders, and we were pregnant again. Everything was great until 17 weeks, and I started contracting. So this perfect pregnancy, again, with no morning sickness, just an oily face, ended me in the hospital. I started contracting, and I went into the ER. And once they put me on to the monitor and, checked me, they were like, you really are contracting. Do you not feel the intensity of it? And I could feel a little bit of pain, kind of like mild menstrual cramps. But, seeing it on the monitor, it was much more intense than what I actually felt. And I had already dilated to like a 3 and had not known any of that. So it was at that point confirmed that I had an incompetent cervix. So there was nothing wrong with my babies at all. It was that my cervix was not strong enough to support the pregnancy. And it would begin to open, and my body was sending messages saying it's time to deliver. And once you get to that point, there's really very little medically that can be done to stop it. So the doctor said, the only course of action we have now is to give you a vaginal cerclage, which is a purse string stitch around the cervix to reinforce that so that it doesn't open any further, and hopefully to close what is already that bag of water that's already bulging through. And so I went in for surgery, and as soon as the doctor touched that bag of water to try to push it back in, it burst. And if anybody's ever been in the situation, that babies don't live and thrive for a long time without that amniotic fluid. There's nothing to help those lungs to grow. Um, so, the doctor came in with a very solemn look on his face and apologies, to say, this is what has happened. Your body is already starting the labor process, and we can't stop it at this point. So I delivered my daughter on July 21st, I'm sorry. And then we were told, wait 3 to 6 months and try it again. So we went through that same process. Again, everything was great. I had a vaginal cerclage placed at 12 weeks. Um, my doctor said, listen, this is not going to fail. I have reinforced it like 4 times and tied a knot in it. It's not going anywhere. So I was like, yes, we're on our way home with a daughter this time. So that was at 12 weeks. We passed all the milestones. We passed 16 weeks. We passed 17 weeks. And I was like, okay, this is our time now. And then at 20 weeks, 19 weeks and 4 days to be exact, our daughter, Madison, was born. And she was born alive, and she lived for 9 hours before she ultimately died. But um, that vaginal cerclage did not work, obviously. Um, but the blessing in all of that is that she lived. I was able to hold a living, breathing baby for 9 hours. The pain was just as intense as it was before, but this story had a different ending to it. And And that gave me the hope that I needed to keep trying, because I was so angry with God. I was upset with the medical community, and just a wealth of emotions that happened after our third loss. And I was just ready to give up. But the fact that she lived gave me hope that, maybe if we try one more time, that it can happen. And I'm so thankful that we did, because a year later we were pregnant. I carried a baby to full term. And we have now a 10-year-old son, Ethan. But that was with the help of medical intervention through my beloved doctor at the University of Chicago, who performed an abdominal cerclage, which really helped me, carry that pregnancy to full term. And he said, you can have all the kids that you want to now. And he didn't lie. He didn't lie. So, we had Ethan. It was great. I'm moving this story along because it is extensive.
No, I appreciate hearing the names and the whole journey that you've been through. So
Yeah. So our pregnancy with Ethan was beautiful. I mean, we had no complications at all. I was followed by a high risk maternal fetal medicine specialist. Perfect. Pregnancy couldn't have gone any better. Um, so after he was born, my husband and I decided we were going to wait a year. We were just going to enjoy this beautiful baby that we had, and really just pour all of the love that we had into him, because we had waited so long to fill our home with a baby. And within 5 months, I was pregnant again, and I had no idea. I mean, I felt horrible, because the way I found out I was pregnant is actually hilarious to me when I think about it. I had went to my niece's graduation, and so it was just Ethan and I. He's 8 months old or so. So we go to the graduation, and I come home, and so my friend had posted the pictures of the graduation on Facebook. And so I started looking, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at my face. Look at my nose. It is so oily. And that look just looked like, I think I need to take a test, because I didn't feel anything. I actually felt great. Nothing was going on to alert me that I'd be pregnant. I never had morning sickness, so that wasn't anything strange. I didn't have any cravings, nothing. So, I'm looking at my stomach. I'm looking to see if I can see any signs of pregnancy outside of this wide nose that is shining. I'm like, I look at this nose every day, and I couldn't see it until I looked on the pictures, and I was like, something's going on here. So I pack Ethan up. We go out. I get a pregnancy test. I come back, take it in the middle of the day, and it is positive, clearly positive within like seconds. And so I'm like, oh my God, when did this happen? And how far along am I? So when my husband came home from work, I gave him the shock of his life. And I said, Monday morning, I need an appointment. So he was like, okay. So we go to the doctor, and I was already 5 months pregnant. And I had no idea. So we welcomed the pregnancy. I mean, it was great. It was a surprise. And I was like, oh, well, we'll go for it. So we already found out, because I was so far along, that it was another boy. We were perfect, totally excited. Um, that pregnancy went great. I was still followed by the high risk community. And so 2 days before my planned C-section, I went in just for my final ultrasound and measurements, just to make sure everything was great, like we knew it would be. And there was no heartbeat. 38 weeks. And I could not I could not process all of that. We had already had a baby shower, a pamper shower. We had everything set up. We had the coming home outfit for our son Grayson. Everything was already perfect. I had listened to his heartbeat at 11:30 the night before. And by the time I went to my appointment at 9 o'clock the next day, he was gone. So my husband and I came home in complete shock and disbelief. And the next day, we went to the hospital for our C-section to deliver Grayson. And there's when we found that the cord was wrapped around his neck and around his leg and such. Um, I still, my voice still trembles when I talk about that. because the trauma of just getting so close to holding your reality and it all slip away to become a nightmare. There are just no words to really capture the full emotion behind that. No words. I mean, this brought my doctor to tears. When the ultrasound tech, um, put the wand on, and she immediately saw that there was no heartbeat. I knew because, of course, I mean, I had been on that in that office 5 times, and I knew what to look for, and I didn't see that flicker anymore. And she immediately turned the screen off, and she said, "I'll be right back." I knew. The doctor came in, and he had become a part of our family. I mean, he had been with us for 3.5 years by this point. And he came in and he just hugged me and cried. And when he was able to find his words, he could only say, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." So my doctor in Chicago that said, "You can have all the kids you want," he was right. But I never expected that once I had overcome the hurdle to carry a baby, I would be forced with another hurdle of keeping it. So I told my husband, "And we can't end like this." Of course, that wasn't immediate. It took us some months to really process this. And I said, I don't want to end my story like this. I don't want to end it on a sad note. I don't want to end it, um, in need of sympathy. I don't want to end it on a chapter of shame, because I carried a lot of shame with all of these pregnancies. And it's quite an unusual emotion to think about. But when you think about a woman, some of the greatest things that we aspire to be is a wife and a mother.
Mhm.
And the thing that I had wanted to do for over half of my life, to be a mother to multiple kids, and it was no secret. I had told so many people about this. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. And I felt so ashamed. I felt so ashamed of my body. I felt ashamed of sharing my hopes and dreams and expectations with other people. It took us a while to recover. But I told my husband, we can't end like this. Somehow we'll find the strength to try it again when the time is right. And thank God we did, because we now have a 7-year-old. His name's Evan. Um, and he came into our lives and has just been such joy to our lives and to our home. So that was our journey toward motherhood. And although it has many hills and valleys, there's also butterflies and rainbows and all of that other goodness tucked inside.
I just can't imagine. Yeah. Um, I'm just so sorry, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And I think when you had said that you were ashamed, that was something that really stood out to me at the end, just because I think, there's so many reasons it seems that couples maybe don't share their losses or their stories. And yeah, do you think, were you pretty open with your family and friends, or how did you handle that part of it?
I was. I was open. I wasn't always completely honest, if that makes sense. So our first pregnancy, I mean, we told everybody immediately. You know, People are like, usually people wait until like their second trimester. They wait till they're out of the, unsafe zone to tell. And I was like, oh no, we're fine. Nobody's in my family has ever had a miscarriage. I mean, I didn't even think that way.
Yeah.
So we were very open and public, about our pregnancies. So it was almost automatic that even when we wanted to be private about our loss, we couldn't, because everything was already so public.
Mhm.
It was on Facebook. I was blogging about it. It was out there. So yes, we talked about it. I didn't have like close people, touchable people in my community that could say, I this has happened to me. I didn't have mentors along this journey. So that's why I was very vocal about it. online and in support groups and things of that nature because I wanted to get it out. I wanted to talk through my emotions. I wanted to understand why my breasts were still leaking when I didn't have the baby to feed. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk through my emotions of why I still felt fetal movement and I knew there was not a baby there. I didn't want to think I was crazy, but I just couldn't tell somebody that hadn't been through that. So I was open, to people that understood. Um, and I wasn't always honest to the people that were closest to me. When they said, "Are you good? Are you feeling okay today?" It was always an answer in the affirmative because I didn't know how much they could handle. And so I wanted to make it comfortable for them. I risk my own um, healing or what. I don't even think healing is really what we were after, but I risked my own. Um, I can't even think of the word that I want to use right here, but I risk how I was feeling. I risked my authentic emotions
Mm.
by not sharing them truthfully with other people because I didn't want it to be too much for them. And so when they would ask me, "Are you doing okay?" rather than saying, "I'm not okay, I'm really suicidal right now," I would say, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." I put on the Christian faith, and my husband he was a minister at the time. He's a preacher. We're in the church, praise and worship leaders. I'm like, "Oh yeah, we have to put on the faith face for other people, or they're going to think differently of us." And I did myself such a disservice by being someone that I was not for the sake of other people. Thankfully, I got to the place where I had to be honest because I realized there were other people coming along this journey behind me and they needed to see authentic grief. They needed to hear the truth about their story and how they could move forward.
And that kind of leads to my next question. So, at some point in your journey, you also became a credentialed doula. So, you're I have to check my notes, a birth and bereavement doula, which I didn't even know was, um, I didn't know that that was an option, I guess. But when did you seek that path, I guess?
That path was after Evan was born. So that was after all of my children had been born. And, I had written a book, done, just different things, started a support group here in the upstate, but I still wanted to do more. There's always the pull of, am I doing enough? Am I being good support, to the people that come along my path? And I thought about some of the things that were most important to me as I journeyed through recurrent loss. And I thought back to my very first loss experience with my daughter, Destiny. And it was the fact that I had a cousin who is a midwife or was a midwife in Delaware at the time. And she was so honest with me, which is what I needed. But when I was ready to deliver Destiny, she said, "T, I want to make sure you're ready for this." She had seen babies born at all types of gestation in different conditions. And so she knew that delivering a 16-week-old baby looked much different than delivering a 40-week-old baby. And so she said, "How much do you want to know?" And I said, "Tell me everything." So
Mm.
she talked me through how my body would change, how I would know when I was ready to deliver. She told me like what my daughter would look like. I mean, in detail because I wanted that.
Mhm.
And so she really saved me from shock, is what it was. But when I thought about that, she was really my tour guide through grief. She really was. She companioned me in grief before, that chapter of it ever even started. And I'm so thankful for that because it really helped me to embrace my daughter from the moment that she was born. Not that I don't think I could have ever rejected her, but to not be afraid to hold her or to feel like I would hurt her or anything. So I wanted to be good help to people that would come my way. I wanted to be a good tour guide for what they would experience. So we get calls from the hospital to say, we have a mother who's 23 weeks, she'll be delivering, the baby has already expired or whatever. I want to be there to say, how much do you want to know?
Mm.
This is how you can care for the baby after he's born. This is the condition that their skin will be in, and this is how. And so it was so important to me just to go and get this credential training so that I'm just not going off of my own experience, because I only saw um, I didn't see everything. I saw 19 weeks, 20 weeks, and then I saw 38, but there was still a lot that I was missing. But I wanted to know how to be good support, not just physical support, but emotional and mental support as well. And that's one of the things that I think people don't think about. They think the doula is just there for the birth, to help you stay comfortable or whatever, but it's also there for the social, mental, emotional, spiritual support as well. So it was my um, attempt to be good help to those that would come along the path.
That's amazing. And that's, yeah, I guess I've become more familiar with the postpartum doula,
Mhm.
um, and what the role that can play. But I think all moms just need so much support for their mental health
Yeah.
regardless. But I mean, obviously, especially in this case, and I think that work is so needed. I think we treat the physical aspects of pregnancy
Right.
well, um, but yeah, we're the spiritual and mental side of things and emotional side of things just tend to get kind of dropped off.
Yeah, I agree. And you think about the mother, I mean, she has so many responsibilities, during pregnancy, of course, but then after that delivery has come, if there is, a living child, her responsibilities likely increase. And so her day is spent nurturing. But who nurtures the mother? That's one of the key goals of the doula, is also to make sure that we are nurturing the mother. you know, if we're not careful, many mothers nurture from an empty cup over
Mhm.
and over. They pour and they give so much from an empty cup. But there has to be a community of women that are around to really hold that mother and to nurture her and to affirm her in this great task that is before her, whether there is a living child or not. Mothers still need to be nurtured.
Like you're speaking right to my own mission and my soul, because I completely agree. I think the nurturing the moms is really where my heart is, and it's just we need that too. Exactly, you said it so beautifully. um i I wanted to ask, so I'm just looking at my little notes over here, see if I should check in our group. Oh, so we've got a couple people who are catching us live, which is nice, and getting some yes, like I agree with, I think that what you just said about nurturing the mom. But one of my favorite things that you had said in your TEDx talk, this kind of goes along with that, are the things like what not to say to a mom when they're going through those hard times. And I was wondering if you would kind of share some of those platitudes that we hear, and then maybe what some better choices would be. Because I know I get stuck at I'm sorry, and I feel like that's all I've got. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
Well, I think I'm sorry is a great place to start. I mean, it's honest, it's truthful. There are no platitudes along with that. And it's great. I'm sorry. Perfect. I think the problem comes in when somebody is grieving or hurting, we want to talk them into feeling better, if that makes sense. We want to say, all the things that we have heard growing up. We want to say all the things that have been said to us when we were hurt. If we got hurt or if we lost something, if we had a fish and the fish died, don't worry, we'll get another fish. Okay? So when people lose a baby, People have said, and I've heard it, don't worry, you can just have another one. No, I will never have that child again. Never have that child again. True, I may be able to have all the kids I want, but I'll never have that child again. So, one thing that we want to not say is you can have another one. For some people, they may not be able to. Some people are not, they're only giving you the information that you need to know, but sometimes there's a lot more to the story. You know, there have been people that have had to have hysterectomies at the same time that they've had their stillbirth. So you can't say to that mother, you can try again. Just because she didn't tell you that her journey to motherhood, to natural motherhood stopped, doesn't mean anything. She just chose not to tell you. So we can't assume that everybody can just try again, because that's not everyone's story. I've also heard, you're young, you can try again. What does age have to do with it? There are women that are 40 plus and they're still having children. I am so proud of them. Rock on. But age is no guarantee to have a baby. It's not at all. Another thing that we want to refrain from is comparing, um, or to minimize the loss. I've heard, thankfully, there's so many people in our support group that are open to share all of the things that were not helpful. And so at one point we were really listing them out, and I've heard some things that are just completely appalling. Um, Someone was told, you were only 6 weeks, you really didn't know the baby anyway. So that, number one, it minimizes the loss, but number two, it doesn't take into account the hopes, dreams, and expectations that that mother had for that child. For me, I wanted to be a mother since I was 5. And so for someone, if someone had told me that, to say, don't worry, you really didn't know that baby, it was only 6 weeks old. That's a valid statement. I only had that child living in me for 6 weeks, but I had 30 years of hopes, dreams, and expectations for that child. So you can't minimize the intensity of my grief based on the gestation of the baby. You cannot do that. Any statement that starts with at least,
Yes.
leave it. Do not say it. Because what you're automatically doing is minimizing whatever the actual feelings are at that time. You're minimizing them. I've heard statements, well meaning, I mean, they sound beautiful. And I have even said some of these before I was personally acquainted with grief. There are a lot of spiritual platitudes. God needed another angel. God needed another flower in his garden. Doesn't that sound great? But no, God doesn't need any of that. The creator creates whatever he needs. So if he needed an angel, he would have created one. And my baby was a baby. It wasn't a calla lily. So no, God didn't need another flower. But I've said those things because I had always heard those, and it sounded okay. But no, it's not. Some things that are helpful to say, like you said, Emily, I'm sorry. That's a great place to start. I have no idea of the pain that you're experiencing right now, but I'm here to listen if you ever want to talk about it. That is really inviting the griever to be heard. And that is the number one thing that grievers want. Because grievers are told, they're given so many commands. They're told to be strong, to keep your head up, to try again, or, keep it together. But nobody says, just be who you are. Tell me how you feel. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to tell you what you should be doing. I just want to companion you in your grief if you will allow me the opportunity. And it's so hard because we're used to talking. We're used to talking people into feeling better. And so for those that want to be good support to grievers, those supporters have to be comfortable with silence. And it's the most awkward place, but it's so necessary for the griever. Because after all the platitudes have stopped, after all the commands have stopped, they feel like I can be heard now. Now I can be heard. And I can say the truth of whatever's going on. So it's helpful to say, look, I don't know. I don't have the words, but I want to hear your words. Tell me how you feel, if you feel safe. Now, that's the key part. People need a safe place because I'm not going to just pour my heart out to someone that I'm not really in a relationship with, um, a stranger or whoever. You have to create an environment that is safe for the person to share, their pain. And it can be done, but grievers want to be heard. So give them space to talk.
That's beautiful. And I love that. And that just having the words, I have no words, just that's super helpful for me.
Yeah.
Because yes, I've had, it's so common. And I mean, I've had friends who've come to me and I just feel like I'm at a loss. So I think just having that perspective helps me personally. And I know that this really is not about me, but I appreciate having that kind of just in my toolkit.
And one other thing that I love is, don't be afraid to say the child's name if the parent named them. It
mm,
is so comforting to hear other people say my children's name, to
mm,
remember them, to remember their birth dates. That was one thing. My mother was like my biggest supporter when it came to pregnancy loss. If somebody asked her, how many grandchildren do you have, she included them. It was always, oh, I have 7. There's no doubt about it. Or however many it was at the time. But she said their names, and on the days that they died or their birthdays, whatever it was, she came to my job.
mm,
She came with flowers to remember her angel baby or her angel boy or her angel girl, whichever one it was. But I love that because I wanted them to be remembered in somebody else's heart other than just mine and my husband's. So if the person that you are supporting, if they matter to you, their
mm,
children matter also.
mm.
I received Christmas cards with all of my children's names in it. You talking about something amazing that people actually remember enough and they're not afraid to say their names. It's good medicine to a grieving family's heart that their kids are not forgotten.
I love that. That's that's such a good idea. And I would be afraid to do something like that. So it's helpful to hear that.
Yeah.
Now I've got the cat involved. It's just chaos over here. But yeah, so I'm just checking in on the group because we have a couple of comments from people who are able to catch us live, saying, yeah, I heard all those things. And then from someone else, I think that must have been with the platitudes and stuff. And then absolutely from that positive pregnancy test, you're a mom, and regardless of weeks pregnant, a loss. A loss is a loss.
Yes.
And I have friends too, or people that I've come beside, and it's almost like they minimize it themselves when they're saying it, and they'll say like, oh, like I shouldn't even be, like I should be grateful that I wasn't further along. And I don't know if that's something, just like giving moms permission to be
You
sad.
said
And
it. You said it. That's one thing that I am an advocate for. I encourage moms, give yourself permission to feel what you feel. And the one thing that I love is that grief and gratitude can coexist.
mm,
You can say, yes, I am grateful that I was able to get pregnant to carry, but I'm still hurting. So grief and gratitude can coexist. Absolutely. And people want to say, oh, you should just be thankful that you could get pregnant. Well, sure. yes, of course we're thankful, but we're also hurting because we couldn't keep that pregnancy. So, yeah, I think sometimes we're conditioned to just be positive. After this experience, just be positive. Nobody wants a Debbie Downer around them, but you can grab that mother by the hand and say, listen, it's okay. It's okay to feel what you feel. And I'm not asking you to be sad and crying, but if you need to, have an emotional moment because yes, you are grateful, but you're also sad, you can do that. And those emotions are completely safe with me.
Yeah. I just want a quick peek. Let's see. I think we've kind of covered most of the things we had talked about. Was there anything, people who are watching, if you have questions for Tanika, or Tanika, if you have anything else that you'd want to share before we kind of sign off?
Um, I do not. I don't think I do. I just want to encourage mothers that are, you know, on this journey of pregnancy loss. Don't be afraid to share your story. What I found was when I opened up to honestly share what I had gone through and what I was experiencing, I was really surprised of how many other women that were much older than me, I mean, like senior citizens, came to me and said, you know what? Thank you for saying that you lost a baby and, sharing your story. I lost a baby 20 years ago and I never told anybody outside of my family because we just swept it under the rug. We didn't talk about it. So we do have to normalize this conversation. We really do, because it's happening often. It's happening more than people are talking about. The statistics say that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in some type of loss. So if you think about it, there's a lot of women who have suffered in silence because they feel like they don't have permission to talk about it, or, this is too much, or I should be over it by now. No, absolutely not. If it's been 20 years and you still think about it, you can talk about it. There's no time limit for this. I want to talk about Destiny and Brianna and Madison and Grayson until the day that I die. And it's not for attention's sake, because the grief that I carry has really morphed into love. The byproduct, the founding product of grief is really about love. And so I never want to be healed from this grief, because in essence, I'm being healed from love. And I don't even think that's possible. So my grief has taken on different forms. My grief is not crying and sobbing, lamenting. This grief has turned into passion and energy, but it all boils down to love. And so every time I'm able to share their story, every time I say their name, I'm just giving voice to my grief and how it has changed me, how it has impacted other people. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to share your story. And it's not for everybody. I don't wear a sign to say I'm a mom and I lost 4 kids. No, because I don't want that sympathy. But I do want to be good help and good support to other people. So share, share, share. Don't be afraid to do that.
And when you had said the 1 in 4, when I saw that statistic as I was kind of preparing for this week, and I looked at a group our size, and I realized that that's in just this Facebook group, that's 450 women who likely have experienced this, and like you said, their stories deserve to be told, and when they're comfortable and ready. And we've had some mamas have been sharing this week, and I hope always that they feel comfortable too in this setting.
Yeah.
But where, so if, well, I do want to ask about your book, because I'm a reader, and I'm, so before I let you go, I'm sorry, I'm taking up probably your dinner time.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. So, my novel, Building a Family Breaks My Heart, it is on Amazon, and this really chronicles our journey to building a family. It starts with a beautiful chapter of my love for family. And it really, I think that writing that chapter was probably my favorite, because it really pulls into all of the aspects of why I wanted to be a mother. And it talks about, my heroes of motherhood, which was my grandmothers. But then I talk about, real time, vivid details about our journey to build a family. And, it's open, it's honest. It will literally take you on the journey. You'll feel like you're in the delivery room with me. You'll feel like you're back at home. In the office with me writing the blog. I really wanted people to experience everything that I experienced. And I just put words to all of these experiences, and just wanted to share what it was like for us to build a family. So Building a Family Breaks My Heart, again, is on Amazon. You can find it by searching for my name or typing in the title. It is in digital and paper format. I also have um, a song on there. It's called I Am Dreaming. You can find that on all of the digital platforms as well. That is a sacred lullaby that I wrote after Evan was born. Um, it was one day I was holding Evan, and I was looking up at the mantle, and I was looking at the picture of Grayson. He's right here. Here's Grayson. Um, looking at Grayson's picture and holding Evan, and they looked the same. It was like scary that they were like twins almost. Um, but I started hearing a little melody in my head, and so I didn't want to wake Evan up, but I didn't want to miss that melody. So I just grabbed my cell phone and quietly sang it into the cell phone so I wouldn't miss it. But I wrote that sacred lullaby, and it's called I Am Dreaming. And it's like you're holding heaven and earth at the same time. And I was dreaming of holding Grayson as I was holding Evan. Um, so it's just melodies from my heart that I'm sharing. So that's on all digital platforms as well. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook as well. I have a page, Building a Family Breaks My Heart, or you can connect with my personal page, Tanika Dillard. I'm on YouTube as well, under Grievers Empowerment with Tanika Dillard. So, however, on Instagram as well as T Dillard and the number 6. However, you can reach me is fine. I love personal connection. So if you want to email me, I'm completely fine with that. My email is tanika@tanikadillard.com. One thing that I love to do is support grieving mothers. If there's somebody with an incompetent cervix and you want to know, how did you do this? Who do I connect with? I'm big on advocacy and education. So email me, inbox me, whatever works for you. I'm happy to support and companion mothers in their journey toward motherhood after loss.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your story and all of those ways to connect with you. We'll have to, I think I had linked your book earlier, but I'm sure we can get it into our video, the comments and stuff too. And I'm looking forward to hearing your song. I missed that when I was, stalking you on all the platforms and trying to find.
Well, thank you so much. It speaks volumes that you're not afraid, to embrace this topic and to give voice to it, to your audience. So thank you so much for just having me and allowing me to share tonight.
Well, thank you. And I will go ahead and end our Facebook side of things. So good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much.